Okay, guys, so you asked Dee and I some questions about being a doula and I guess what it's like to be a doula and what it's like to need a doula. And so we're going to answer those questions now.
So, this one's for you.
Okay.
As a doula, do you carry a generalized doula bag, or do the items change to cater towards each mother and her wants and needs for birth?
So yes, I do have a generalized doula bag. My first video on this channel is what's in my doula bag. That just details everything that I like to have to best support a mother. But also, I will add things to my doula bag based on my first initial consultation. So if a mother, the family, the client is specifically telling me like they would like certain support measures, maybe it's an item that I don't have, I'll make arrangements to get that item. Or if they have it, I'll make sure they have it in their bag. But yes, I do have a generalized doula bag.
My phone.
So the next question's for you, right?
Yes. I'll read it,
Okay.
since I already have the phone. For D, what made you choose Tasha? Do you feel a doula who is a person of color can better connect with you in ways such as culture and traditions? That's exactly why I chose Tasha. Those questions kind of roll into one answer. I wanted a doula because I wanted that support. I wanted that advocacy while I'm in labor, while I'm postpartum. And I wanted somebody that would have a certain level of empathy for my living situation,
Your socioeconomic standing.
Exactly. There she is with the college. But yeah, that's pretty much exactly why I chose Tasha and why I wanted a doula in the first place. So, the next question, I believe, is for you.
Okay.
At what point in pregnancy should a person look for a doula?
So that's kind of based on several different factors. If you're high risk, maybe you should consider a doula early on to accompany you to your appointments. If you have a support system, then maybe you want to hire a doula later on. It's just based on opinion, I think. You and I connected, I think you were 5 months?
Yeah, it was about 5 months.
Yeah, so it's your preference. There's no specific time. A doula's contract usually will lay out like what they're able to do. So it just depends on several different factors, and once you consult with a doula, if that's early on, you may decide, okay, that doula would check in on you later on, and you would just check in with them when you have appointments. I know my next client, I connected with her when she was like 2 months, and we just kind of reconnected again, and she is 7 months. So yeah, if she has a large support system, it's just your personal preference.
It's my 2 cents for what it's worth on this. The earlier the better, to be quite honest. We connected when I was about 5 months, 4.5, but I kind of wish in hindsight that we would have connected sooner.
Yeah.
It's because, there's so much that goes into it, like us getting to know one another. From this standpoint, I mean, we were already friends before this,
right.
But
this is a more intimate level, though. Like, you hadn't told anybody on Facebook that you were even pregnant. So this was like, as soon as I found out, I was like, oh my gosh, like.
Exactly.
I kind of had the same reaction, I'm sure, as a lot of people did on your page.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think because we did already know each other and we did already have an established bond, it was kind of easier for you to just choose me as your doula.
Exactly. And if you don't already have someone in mind, it's probably best to make that decision early on. I'd say the beginning of your second trimester, be actively looking for a doula. Just so, when it's time to deliver. When it's crunch time, you already have your birthing plan in place. You guys already have the tools. She already knows, or they already know what it is that you want um, going into this, and you've weighed out your pros and cons and all of that. All that
Yeah.
is really important, and it takes a lot of time to think about some of those things.
It does, because you can have an initial consultation with a doula and just not feel that initial connection, and it gives you time to go out and look for another doula.
Exactly, exactly. So the next question is for you again. I think the rest of these questions are for you pretty much. What type of postpartum support do doulas provide?
So it depends on the doula. I'm a full spectrum doula, so I actually receive training in all levels of being a doula. Personally, I think I am going to be focusing on labor and birth doula work, but my scope of it has been so far that not only do I want to be there for the mother before they give birth, as of course during, but I still check in with my first client still to today, and I still want to be able to provide that support. D is a very special, situation, because I wanted to make sure I was here. I don't live in Virginia. I live in Georgia. So normally with the client, I would see them 1 to 2 times after birth. I can't exactly fly back every time that I want to check in on her, but with social media, I'm able to check in on her. Now, there are specifically doulas that are with you postpartum, and I think, if she can connect with somebody in the area, if she needed the support physically, there are definitely several resources, and I would be able to recommend doulas in the area to her. So if she felt like she needed additional support, I'm sure that she would reach out to somebody.
I will. I mean, they're not you, but
Yeah. Yeah. And I get that. Like, my first client said the same thing when I recommended her to a postpartum doula, because I was leaving New York and I was moving to Georgia, and we already established that bond. So if you do find a doula in your area who can be with you before, during, and after, that's great. But if not, and you have the support system already in place, then having just the birth doula is fine. Yeah.
Okay, so the next question, I already know the answer to it because we had a scare not too long ago. What are your thoughts on eating and drinking during the birthing process?
I think if you are leading up to possibly being in labor, definitely stay home as long as possible so that you can do things like eating and drinking water or whatever. The hospital, they'll let you have water and ice, and the reason behind that is like they don't want to, in the event that there's an emergency C-section, have to deal with like emptying your bowels and things like that beforehand. But I personally think that it's safe as long as you're not eating a whole bunch of stuff, like if you're not binge eating, then it shouldn't be a problem. If you're eating lightly, like some fruit and maybe like if you had breakfast, toast or something, like I feel like it's fine. But I understand the need for that whole like not eating during labor.
Yeah.
But I think that's the comfort of being at home and laboring, is like if you are at the hospital, who knows when you're gonna have your next meal. But if you're home laboring when you're not even in the early stages of labor, because there are different stages of labor. If you were in active labor, you wouldn't want to be eating anyway. But if you were in early labor, you may want to, and you should be able to if you're at home.
Exactly. You don't want to labor while you're hangry. So, it's just important. Just stay, throughout the pregnancy, just make sure that you're staying nourished, that you're staying hydrated, because especially the last couple of, weeks or days before your due date, just make sure that you're not feeling hungry or you're not feeling thirsty, because at any moment you could go into labor, and then from there
And to give you some perspective, typically a woman can go into labor 3 weeks before or 2 weeks after her estimated due date. And like the key word there is estimated. So a baby comes when a baby wants to come, and
Boy, don't I know
staying hydrated is very important.
Yes. Yes. Drink as much water
Yeah.
as you can possibly handle, and lots of fruit. Lots of fruit.
Since I've been here, I'm like, drink water, drink water.
Exactly. And thank you, by the way, for keeping up with my water intake.
Of course.
I'm not the biggest fan of water, but okay. Next question: how can we support doulas in our communities, even if we're not expecting ourselves?
Woo. That's a big one. I think the most important thing is doulas they're gonna support their clients and their friends, usually in this day and age, through social media. They either have a Instagram page, they have a Facebook page, their personal page, their business page, their website. Just sharing that information, recommending them to people that are having a baby. That's a way to support their business, but to just support them emotionally, I think is just I appreciate every time I see somebody comment on how they appreciate the work that I'm doing, because it's a constant reminder, although that there is a need for doulas, and especially in communities of color, and I know that, and that's the drive behind my business. It's rewarding to hear, like, you're doing a really good job, or just seeing somebody that maybe I'm not even like talking to them daily, but they're sharing my post, and it makes me feel like, okay, the things that I'm saying are being heard, and not even through my network of people, but if somebody is sharing my post about reproductive justice, or just birth in general, and the maternal mortality rate, because I posted a lot of things about that on my business page. I think just sharing those things is the most helpful to me, because it gets the word out into the communities as to what a doula even is.
Yes, use those Twitter fingers. Yes, I think it's really important that, even if we can't support by way of resources,
Right.
like financially and things like that, it's signal boosting, sharing, getting the message across, speaking with the pregnant people in your life about, have you considered getting a doula? Things like that. I think that's a really major way of supporting, is just getting the message across.
Yeah.
If not anything else.
Because, like, for doulas, our goal is to lower the need for a cesarean, to lower the risk of postpartum depression, to lower the risk of maternal mortality, infant mortality. Like, those are the key things that, make up as to why we're doing the work that we're doing, and especially in communities of color, because it's more comfortable to be around somebody that has that lived experience of what it's like to be in those type of communities. So for us, it's everything. And with my company, I have Conjure Goddess Doula services, but I just branched out into volunteer doula services, and that's so that the people that aren't able to afford a doula, they still get one, because everyone deserves a doula, and who needs it the most is the ones that are really being attacked the most. That's it's to the point now where it is an attack on our race. So with that being said, the best thing that you can do is, if somebody that is a doula has a business, you're sharing their business, you're sharing their volunteer services, you're sharing everything. I know on my business page I have my resource list, so that's like different companies and different organizations, that is a good resource for a lot of people that maybe they don't have that information.
I don't have anything to add.
Share.
She said a mouthful. And let me see. This question kind of ties into the okay, yeah, that question kind of tied into the other one. So we're gonna go to how far do you travel? Well, she's here from Virginia. I mean, from Georgia.
Georgia, yeah. So, okay, I lived in New York. So I know that I have friends there, and I know that I have other doulas there that may, recommend me. So I would travel, of course, back to New York. I live in Georgia, so probably all of Georgia, and surrounding states. Like my next birth is in Tennessee. I'm here in Virginia. I have family in Florida. I don't think that there's anywhere in the U.S. that I wouldn't travel to. However, the best thing that you could do if you're searching for a doula is trying to find somebody in your area. So if you can, do that, because it may be difficult for them to get to you. If you're not able to afford their services, then how would they be able to get to you? If they, I have my volunteer doula program, which somebody was able to donate the flight for me to come to you.
Yes, on a drop of a dime. It's still wild to me how that happened.
And if I didn't have that volunteer doula program, there wouldn't be anybody making donations to that. And, I would travel to other states for people, even if they're under the volunteer doula program. But I would also encourage them to find somebody closer to them. And I think that's there's no greed there. I'm not, I guess most people, you would say, I want all the clients I can get. But the focus is on the client, the person that's needing the services. And the best way you can support them is to finding them somebody in another state. Unless, of course, you already have a connection with them and you want to be that support person for them and they want that in return, then I think finding somebody close is best. But if you can't, I do travel.
Okay. What made you become a doula?
That is such a big question. So I will tell you what I told my class on the first day of my training, and that is, so I found myself and I found self-love and my purpose through Conjure. And I found this relationship with my ancestors through Conjure. And with that, I kind of was guided into, this is the work you're supposed to be doing. I have a very close relationship with, my grandparents who've passed away, and they have been very adamant about, this is the work you're supposed to be doing. And if there were moments throughout this that I had any doubt, they're constantly reminding me of that. So what made me want to become a doula and why I strengthened that, it was through Conjure. However, once I got into the classes, I was fortunate enough to train under Chanel at Ancient Song Doula Services. So there was also a whole nother side of that, of reproductive justice. Me not being a mother and me not even knowing the things that mothers go through, I didn't know how much of a need there was for doulas, and especially for women of color. I think being in that class and connecting with the mothers that I've connected with, there are mothers that are, in prison, and they're literally able to deliver their babies, but they're in labor in shackles and in, handcuffs until they're in active labor, and then those things are removed, those restraints are removed, only for them to have the baby, and then they're immediately put back in them. There are mothers that don't have access to get to a clinic to have an abortion, or have birth services, or see a gynecologist, or
their checkups.
They have no means of getting there as far as financially, transportation. It's been eye-opening to be around mothers and to talk to mothers that are going through that experience, and to just be in that class and just soak up that information. And it's been it's been rewarding because, again, I wanted to become a doula, and it was something that I was kind of guided into through Conjure and through my ancestors. But the continuation and the drive for that, it expanded because of reproductive justice and because of connections with people like D.
I can't express any more than I already have, and I'm
Yeah.
glad that I have you and that you're here. And just to hit it home, she just hit it home, like how important what she's doing and what other doulas are doing for women of color is, because the thing with being pregnant and being in having so many socioeconomic barriers is, unless you are able to get an abortion, or even if that's your choice, or it isn't your choice, you're still gonna have a baby.
But again, that also falls back onto it should be your choice, and reproductive justice, fights for that too, because there are so many centers that kind of hide under, like, oh, are you pregnant, or oh, are you seeking an abortion, and you think that you're going to an abortion clinic, but really they're psyching you up to convince you not to get an abortion. And
exactly.
It's your right to have a child, but it's also your right not to have a child, and it's your choice. And I think having a doula, you can advocate for that as well. Being present at an abortion is just as important as being present at a birth.
Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, you're there for the mother, you're there for the support, and that doesn't take away the fact that she's a mother because she needed to, end that pregnancy. If anything, emotionally, she needs the support.
Exactly. That gave me chills. Okay. How many births have you attended?
I've attended more births than I've been a doula for. I have been a doula under my own business, Conjure Goddess, one other birth, and D will be my second. So I've attended more births than I have been a doula for. I have kind of stood back and watched and observed other doulas in the birthing suite or the hospital room, and I've been present for family members. Something that my instructor told me at the second day of class was that if you have ever been any type of support, just a listening ear for somebody, then you're probably already, born to be a doula, which means anybody really could. I had, men in my class. I had transgender folks in my class, non-binary folks. Like, everybody has the ability to become a doula if they have a level of humility and compassion. And so I don't think that it's that important of like how many births have you been to. It's how valuable were you at those births.
How impactful.
How impactful, yeah. And so just being sometimes just the listening ear, gives you the ability to do so. But I had a 7-week course with Ancient Song Doula Services, and it was on the scope of full spectrum doula work and reproductive justice. Like I said, there are several situations where a doula may need to be present. That could be at a prison, that could be at an abortion clinic, that could be at a home birth, a birthing center, a hospital. So being present for those things, it really opened up my eyes to a lot of stuff. But I had my nervous moment with the first client. That's like as I'm en route to get to her. But once I got to her, it was as if all of that nervousness went away, and it was, for her, it was as if I could breathe now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've had one client of my own under Conjure Goddess Doula Services, and D is the second, and my third will be in August.
Okay. Let's see, what's the next one? What is your favorite thing about being a doula?
Oh, these are the two questions that I was nervous about.
Yeah.
I think for me it's really hard to say what is my favorite thing about being a doula, because there isn't just one thing. I think I feel most thankful and feel like the work is rewarding by working in communities of color, and I will be working in LGBT communities because there's a need for a doula the most in those two communities, and I think I love that.
I knew she was gonna do that.
I think I love that I have been given the tools to do so. So yeah, that's what I like the most. I don't want to answer the next one.
Honesty, transparency.
Mm-hmm.
What's your least favorite thing about being a doula?
I think my least favorite thing about being a doula is that a lot of people don't know what a doula is. They don't know why do you need a doula, or you get comments like, "Oh,
Is that
that's
your
something."
sister?
Somebody did ask us that.
My doctor.
Yes, it's your sister. No, you get comments like, "Oh, Black people don't need a doula." Like, who needs it the most is Black women, So, yeah, I think that's my least favorite thing, is that when I tell people, "Oh, I'm a doula," and they say, "Well, what is that?" And then when I explain to them what a doula is, they say, "Well, why does a woman need that if she has her husband or she has her family?" Because at the end of the day, a woman's support system shouldn't be limited. It shouldn't be. And if whether the husband or partner is there or not, you're there to support the mother. And that means that if she has a spouse, you're supporting the spouse so that he can support her. You're supporting, say she had her mother present, you're supporting, whatever family member that they have, support them.
Yeah, I can honestly say, with her being here, she does so much, and it kind of makes me feel a way too when people ask, what do you need a doula for? Like, for instance, I have my younger brother here, and he's been tending to my children, which, you would think on the surface, okay, well, she can have the baby, she's fine, but then I need that extra, while he has the kids, I don't want to go to the hospital by myself.
Of course not.
And, she's been doing so much as far as, helping me get up off the couch and, helping me with coaxing this baby out through the birthing ball here, and just us talking about, my plans and, the pregnancy, and helping me with meals. That's probably my favorite part.
Yeah, so a doula, like, you're not always going to be able to do all of these things for every client, but if you are able to, for DM, helping her, with meal prep or straightening up, or helping her physically, like get off the couch, or her physically while she's going through a contraction, and just being there. She, like she said, she needed somebody. She can't drive herself to the hospital, like.
Exactly.
So a doula isn't necessarily like, gonna be there for medical things, because a doula is not a medical personnel. A doula is there to support and advocate for the mother. And like for my first client who lived in New York, she is not wanting to take public transportation. She's not wanting to, like, when she was having her contractions, she wasn't even able to speak to anybody. So like in those moments, how is she supposed to check into the hospital? I know her information, so I'm able to pass that along to them. But yeah, like, if you're going through a contraction, how are you able to answer doctor's questions?
Because they normally have to wait a minute before I
Yeah. So it's necessary regardless if they have a family member there present or not, because you're there to support them, and that best way that you can support them is by supporting everybody who's supporting them.
And there's no such thing as too much support.
Yeah.
Especially not for us, especially not for women of color, and especially not for women of color with some socioeconomic barriers. You can never have too much support. We need all the support that we can get.
Yeah.
And it's very empowering to have that kind of support with you. You feel a lot more comfortable with what you're about to do. And, I've already had 3 kids, This isn't new to me, but I will say this is probably the most empowered I've felt as someone that's about to have a baby.
Because you're having that freedom to labor at home and know what it feels like to actually bring your child into the world. And, there's lots of different comfort measures that a doula can provide. Like, I have the playlist, the music playlist, and we have candle lights and aromatherapy with my essential oils. Like, we have the rebozo. So, if you're watching the What's in My Doula Bag video, you would have already seen some of the comforting measures that I have to help Dee and other clients.
Okay. Well, that was it for the questions.
Oh, okay. So we didn't really have a lot of questions, but it did take a while for us to answer them. Well, me to answer them.
I kind of enjoyed this little, the Q&A for what, we didn't have a whole lot of questions, but we had a whole lot of dialogue. So that was
good. But we already naturally have that back and forth dialogue because we talk about these things
all
on
the
a regular
time.
basis. Since I've been here, we watched 2 documentaries. So what did you think of Maternity Desert? Because that's actually close to home for you.
Yes. And I was thinking, the first thing that popped in my head was that would have very well been me if I actually lived in DC instead of just the general DMV area. And it just hits it home. Just why, doulas are so important. Because, she's talking about the maternity drought in DC. There is a region
there's 2 hospitals that closed down in 2 different black neighborhoods in DC.
Yeah, and those are, those happen to be the low-income neighborhoods. So now you have mothers, expectant, pregnant people that are, missing work to take the metro halfway across the district, the ones that are able to, and then the ones that aren't, they have some maternity, what are those clinics called again?
Well, there's the birthing centers.
The birthing centers. But the thing about the birthing centers, while they are, so necessary, and I'm so glad that they have something implemented in place for, those pregnant women. If you're high risk, if you need a C-section, if you're having complications, they can't administer care to you at those birthing centers. So, where does that leave? What does that leave high risk people who don't have transportation and the means of, getting to those few hospitals that they have? And it was a very
emotional.
Yes. Yeah. Extremely emotional. I was high risk in the beginning of my pregnancy.
Yeah.
So it kind of hit home for me, just the privilege of proximity. While I'm not privileged in a lot of ways, generally speaking, being in Virginia where
everything is so spread out. It's like that in Georgia too, because I just moved to Georgia, so it takes forever to get to everything. It took us 30 minutes to get to your hospital.
Yes.
And that was with no traffic, so.
Yes. So could you imagine if it was like an hour away?
Yeah, these women have to travel an hour and a half on public transportation where they may not be having somebody get up from their seat so that, and that's just to get to their appointments. So when the time comes, because again, there are 2 hospitals that have L&D, the labor and delivery, were closed, they're going to have to be an hour and a half on public transportation in active labor.
Yeah.
That's not going to be easy.
It was very humbling, and it just, like I say, it hit the point home why what you're doing is so important, and why we need the signal boost, why we need to get the message across. Aside from the maternity drought in DC, black women, black pregnant people are dying at just crazy rates.
Again, regardless of their socioeconomic standing, we have Serena Williams, who almost, just lost her life, and if she didn't speak up for herself and know already what was wrong, then,
exactly,
that could have ended fatally.
Exactly. So, we have to, at some point, we have to be solution-oriented to these, issues. And
we have to help ourselves.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, it's historically been proven that,
we on our own.
Our black men are not going to help us.
Y'all don't get me started on that.
Yes. Other women of other ethnicities are not going to help us. They're advocating in a general scope, but
when it comes to that little margin,
for the ones that are out here dying, the percentages of women who are dying, women of color who are dying through childbirth or postpartum, it's climbing. It's climbing. So who better needs a doula than a black woman?
Quite naturally.
Yeah.
Well, this was fun.
It was. So thank you guys for providing the questions. It's a pretty long video, but I hope you got through all of it. And we're going to work on getting this baby out.
Yes, I'm on my birthing ball, and that's what I've been rocking on, if anybody's been wondering.
Yeah. Maybe going for a walk, see how she feels after the walk. So
yes. Please send me, well, by the time this video comes out, I've been had the baby.
Yeah. It'll be edited and posted later.
All right, well, I guess that's it. Thanks for
guys,
watching.
Thank you.